immigration judge has ordered that Mahmoud Khalil, the face of Columbia University's pro-Palestinian protest last year, be deported. You may remember Khalil was detained back in March by federal authorities, who alleged that his presence was a threat to U.S. foreign policy. Now, Khalil was kept in a Louisiana detention facility for more than 3 months before he was released.
Now, despite being released from immigration enforcement custody, a judge ordered late last week that Khalil be removed from the U.S. for not disclosing certain information on his green card application. The judge's order reads in part, "The respondent understood the consequences and that the candid disclosure of his affiliations might lead to an additional line of questioning and the ultimate denial of his application for conditional permanent residency. The respondent willfully misrepresented material facts for the sole purpose of circumventing the immigration process and reducing the likelihood his application would be denied." In response to the order, DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin called it a privilege to be granted a visa or green card, saying in a statement to The Hill, "When you advocate for violence, glorify and support terrorists that relish the killing of Americans and harass Jews, take over buildings and deface property, that privilege should be revoked, and you should not be in this country."
But Khalil is fighting back, slamming the Trump administration in a statement of his own. He writes, quote, "It is no surprise that the Trump administration continues to retaliate against me for my exercise of free speech. Their latest attempt through a kangaroo immigration court exposes their true colors once again." Khalil could be deported to either Algeria or Syria. His legal team says they have 30 days to challenge the ruling, indicating that they would appeal to the Board of Immigration Appeals.
All right, so Syria or Algeria, because he was born in Syria
yeah.
and is a citizen of Algeria. I guess I'm not super surprised by this. I know people kind of took up Mahmoud Khalil as this shining example of free speech, but there were a lot of issues with his immigration case. I mean, the most obvious is that when the State Department is calling you a threat to U.S. foreign policy and you are on camera justifying the October 7th terror attacks that resulted in Americans being taken hostage, then you are absolutely a threat to U.S. foreign policy. But I think the bigger issue here is the misrepresentations on his green card application. Just a list of some of the things that he did not mention when applying for a green card was working at the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, at the UN Relief and Works Agency, being a member of an anti-Israel group at Columbia University called Apartheid Divest, which was responsible for those illegal encampments. And he also worked in Beirut in Syria's office in the British Embassy. So even regardless of what you think about those groups, leaving them off of your green card application seemed obviously intended to stymie the process of actually talking about his connections to these individuals, these groups, and his feelings about foreign policy and the potential for him to cause unrest in the United States. So when you refuse to list affiliations on your green card application, I think it should be a no-brainer that you have to go.
Yeah, I think to me, when I look at this, there's obviously a political retaliation happening. I mean, he was this vocal critic of how the war was playing out between Hamas and Israel, and he was just very forward in using colleges, which are known as places to share ideas, rebuke things that are going on around the world and be vocal about that. That's what colleges are created for. And there's no actual proof that he supported any designated terror group. So I think when we talk about that and talk about how he's protesting, he didn't say we need to continue to fund Hamas. He said this is not right. He's telling people why he doesn't think that Israel attacking Hamas in the way it is appropriate to keep moving forward. I mean, the UN is saying this now. So how is he actually attached to a terror group? And I think that, when immigration courts particularly point someone out who we know was demonstrating their free speech on a campus and then find anything, like if you're already on somebody's radar and then they look for anything to get you out of there, like that's a real thing that happens in political retribution or in retribution in life. And I think that we need to make sure that we're not setting a precedent that people are just, and mind you, he should fill out the application correctly. That's just the standard. But we should not set a precedent that you become or you have a target on your back simply because you protested at a college. And so now we open up the can of worms to figure out how to deport you. I don't think that is a good precedent to set in the United States. That's not the foundation that we were built on.
So I'll just start with the point that it wasn't just a protest, but actually breaking the law in taking over public spaces and fomenting threats of violence against Jewish people on campus and preventing their free movement, which is a violation of the Civil Rights Act. But beyond that, you asked, how is he connected to Hamas, or how is he supporting Hamas? In several news interviews, he repeatedly refused to condemn Hamas. And in a separate news interview with Ezra Klein, when he was talking about the October 7th terror attacks, he said, effectively, and he did use the word we, but I'll paraphrase the rest, we had no choice but to carry it out this way, which is very bizarre phrasing if you don't see yourself as connected to Hamas in some way. He also, again, was involved in this group that was distributing flyers that were in support of Hamas and October 7th. So I think it's pretty undeniable that he was aligning himself with terrorist groups.
Well, like he said, he has 30 days or his team has 30 days to try to appeal this and see if the willful intent matches what, he's being accused of. And I just believe that, as somebody who looks at colleges as a place where we grow ideas, we debate topics, it gets contentious. We obviously never want to.
Tense isn't a debate, right? That's not a debate.
Well, people occupy spaces. I mean, Rosa Parks sat on a bus. You know what I mean? You're not supposed to sit there technically according to the law, right? But at the time, maybe what was happening was wrong. And so all I'm saying is that there are ways that people protest by going in spaces that they're not supposed to be, to draw attention, to draw conversation. And that's something that we should champion, especially if we're now having the same conversation, that perhaps there are criticisms that we can make that are valid of Benjamin Netanyahu. And it doesn't condemn people as being anti-Semitic because they're having these dialogue. That's what colleges are for. They're daring to have the conversations that we as Americans sometimes shy away from because we're trying to be too politically correct. And so, yes, he should fill out the application properly. And if he needs to get deported because he didn't, that's the consequences of your actions. However, I do believe that if he's being attacked simply because he protested and disagree with an idea or an entire war, then that should be something that we accept, especially on college campuses, which are the beacon of free speech, which teach us and build the next leaders to continue to use the free speech to change the world and America.
I just view it not as a reaction to his speech, but to his actions. Because again, putting up a tent isn't speech. I mean, civil disobedience, maybe, breaking the law with the intention of bringing attention to a cause, but it's not speech, it's an action. So what we're really not talking about his free speech rights being violated, but him being involved in something that was breaking the law. And I think when you are on a green card, you should be held to a higher standard because, as the DHS spokesperson said, it is a privilege to be able to immigrate to the United States on a legal visa.
I just think about what are the next steps, depending on what people are protesting or depending on what spaces they're occupying.
Well,
when will we say that, it has to open a little bit of Pandora's box to say, okay, the issues that are most endearing to whomever is president, let's target those migrants who came over here on visas.
Well, so the line is pretty clear for me. If it's just someone criticizing Israel or using their speech to criticize any type of policy, then no, I don't think they should be targeted for that. But if someone deliberately breaks the law in service of causing unrest or protest in the United States when they're from a foreign country for the purpose of benefiting another foreign country, then that's where the line ends for me. For example, if someone decided that they wanted to lay down in the middle of a highway to protest some U.S. policy, and I found out they were on a green card, they should be deported.
Yeah, we're going to keep talking about this, obviously, especially in the next 30 days. So I think there's going to be a lot more here. And the ACLU has already lawsuits filed, so we'll be seeing what happens with those.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how his appeal goes. All right, coming up, some Starbucks employees are suing the company over its new dress code. We'll be right back after this.